Good evening, citizens. You guys don't know this, but I made this podcast with 12 seconds to spare before we went live. But I'm here, and here we are. I'm devoid. This is my dad, Rev Atheist, and this is Redacted, a live podcast where we talk about Star Citizen and its development.
Yeah. So this week we're going to talk about. So last week you may know, maybe you don't. We were pre-recorded, so we recorded Thursday and we broadcast on Friday, which unfortunately means that for that broadcast we didn't have an opportunity to talk about all of the changes that have been announced for 3.23 in the Star Citizen Live. Was it Star Citizen Live?
It was
In
Star Citizen
Yeah.
Live.
So
Yeah.
for the Star Citizen Live that was on Friday. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to mute this audio over here because that didn't mute right. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that today, about all those things, our thoughts, etc.
Right. So yeah, we did last week's podcast, and we sort of took the opportunity to speculate. We knew that the SCL was coming, right? 323 is kind of the talk of the town right now, because it's really all there is to talk about. 322, it feels a little stale, right? I can only speak for my own community, right? But we've slowed down a little bit, and that's just because of the state of the game. So 323 is super exciting because, well, if you guys watched last week, right, there's a whole lot coming into 323,
As
and
expected.
we'll link. Yes, yeah, well, more than I expected,
Oh,
honestly, right?
not me.
So, yeah, you were more hopeful than I was going into 323. I think. I I know that Jared came out with that video last year, and we talked about how he had like the whole first half of 2023, and he just kind of went pow 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 and talked about everything that was coming. I really expected more of that to be towards the middle of the year, like toward the end of that deadline, where they work on everything and then they just kind of like shit it all out at the end.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'll tell you why I didn't think that that was likely, because I know how software works, and for the amount of stuff that they're wanting to cram in the first half of the year, if they don't get at least a good portion of that in the first quarter, then their ability to deploy all of it at once with any kind of success in the second quarter would have been, I mean, it was an unreasonable ask. I just couldn't see him doing that. That's too much all at once.
I mean, sure, that's fair, but they're talking about things like there's we knew EVA was coming,
Yep.
right? And they talked distribution centers, right? Like the underground
Mm-hmm.
distribution centers, and that was really surprising to me. Um they uh they didn't say this, right? Take this with a grain of salt. I still don't believe this, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? Leaks for base building tier 0, right? Um Man, I'm sorry. Like I said, I got here with 12 seconds to spare, so I was going to review some of this content before we started. I haven't been able to. In the things that they talked about with coming in 323, what is something that you're excited about, Rev? And while you're talking, I'm going to pull this up so I have some reference material.
Yeah, so I didn't get a chance to like watch it over again because I was watching today's Star Citizen Live before I went back to watch the previous one, and I just got done watching that. So, if I remember correctly, they did say that cargo elevators are expected to be in 3.23, and
I have the whole list here.
I believe they also said persistent hangars, like the personal hangars, was also in it,
So
or
so
at least planned for it.
well, those have to go together, right? They have
Right.
to go together. The freight elevators, the persistent hangars have to be shipped together, and yes, they are both planned for
Yeah.
three.
So that's it. That's top of my list because I think that that is one of the coolest new features, one of the most important changes that's going to be coming into the game here, in the first half of the year, as far as like really changing the way the game feels, for maintaining your ship, for maintaining your inventory. Um, I just think it's super important, and I really think that it's a fundamental shift. Yeah, I think in the way the game is going to feel and play.
I agree. I agree. Howdy, Pyro. How you doing, man?
Hey,
Um, that's a really good one, right? I'm also excited for that. I'll be more excited when we can see how that system pairs with the engineering gameplay when that comes in later this year.
sure.
Because I think they're gonna kind of go in tandem with, you're gonna have to utilize freight elevators to pull up components, right? And you're
Oh,
gonna have to take that time
absolutely,
to
because that
yeah.
gets into the resource management that I know you enjoy so
Yeah,
much,
exactly.
right?
I'm stoked for that.
To be gathering up these physicalized resources that you need on your ship in
Hmm.
terms of
Yep.
the parts that you're going to need, the relays, the other
Fuel.
components.
I'm excited to carry spare fuel cells with me, or however that's gonna work.
I I'm trying to think back if they talked about ship ammunition, if that's something that they were.
It's been touched on.
Yeah.
It has been touched on.
So I can't imagine that's coming soon. But even still, the ability to bring alternative weapons and the possibility of swapping out your loadout,
So even
um,
now, right? They
extra
don't
missiles
have.
and stuff. You know.
We talked a little bit about economy, right? And this sounds like a tangent, but it makes sense, right? Talked a little bit about economy, right? And we talked about how players have sort of developed their own gameplay loops within the
Uh-huh.
economy that maybe wasn't necessarily intended by CIG. There's something like that right now. You're talking about, bringing spare loadouts or spare ammunition. Ammunition is tied to specific guns. And so if you have a ballistic gun and you run out of ammo, you can detach it and attach a new ballistic gun and it'll be full of ammo. I'm not sure if you know that. So
Yeah.
you can kind of do something like that now if you shove a spare loadout in the back of your ship. Be like, oh, I'm out of ammo. You can stop in dead space, right? Go whoop, pull off your gun, put on a new gun, and that's basically a field reload, and it works.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Um,
So
so speaking of economy, right? They talked about um, basically a complete rebalance of costs throughout Star Citizen. Ship costs, parts, um, just
weapons and ammo and,
guns,
and
weapons,
armor and
armor. Exactly.
stuff.
So all of that stuff is going to be completely rebalanced, right?
Yeah,
And
890 jumps are about to double in price, so be prepared for that for you end game folks.
right. So I mean, all of the ships that we're used to being able to buy, for like hundreds of thousands of credits, they're going to bump up over a million and a half. And we're talking these are relatively low end ships bumping up into that
Yeah,
seven figures, which I think is actually good for the game since getting money is so easy. But I think they're also talking about adjusting some of those payouts and how easy it is to get the money to really make the fact that if you've achieved an in-game purchase of one of these ships, right, that means something, and you're going to want to be
agreed.
much more careful with that ship.
Yeah,
But
your money
at least
needs to
once
your
they
money needs to carry significant value,
right,
right? And I know that not everybody is going to agree with me when I say this because I feel like I have sort of an extremist take on this, right? But I feel personally that a solo player should have to work really hard and grind for. I say grind, I say it loosely. I don't really love the grinding kind of gameplay, but I feel like a solo player should have to put in some serious time, right? Some serious effort in order to afford almost any new ship that's half decent, you know? Um
yeah, anything north of a heavy fighter or maybe even a
it,
medium fighter.
even south of that, right? Anything that's more than say like a Pisces or a Mustang or an Aurora, like even those are fairly big purchases, I feel, but like anything above that, I feel like you
Really?
should have to put in some serious time. Yeah, like it shouldn't be like too terribly gruesome to get into one of those starter ships, you know. Um I feel like it's definitely not early game content, more mid game stuff, but um it's been said numerous times, and maybe it's been a while, but it has been said that they want to give us enough content on planetary surfaces to keep us there for an extended period of time, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So a new player, right, should be able to load into the game and have a full experience on the ground. And after they go through and have that experience and spend a significant amount of time on the ground, that's about when I feel like they should be like, "Oh, wow, I have enough money to get a ship," you know? So I feel like there should be plenty of meaningful gameplay and should put in some time before you just hop in a seat and go and fly. That's my own personal opinion, and like I said, it's a little bit of an extremist take in terms of
It is,
economy and money and stuff, and
and not
it's
likely to
probably
happen given that every game package includes a starter ship. So not likely to
right now
happen.
it does. Right now it does. We don't know if I get here's some speculation. Not it hasn't been said, but here's some speculation that's been tossed around. They've
Like what,
people have
offering game packages
suggested,
without ships?
yeah, like a $15 game package that gets you in the game. You load in, right? I I don't know if you can hear anything
I'm
I'm saying
listening, I
right
promise.
now. Did you hear anything I said?
Uh, but some of it. I needed power. I was about. It's like my headset was going
Yeah, no,
crazy.
that's okay. Yeah, so I mean, some backers have talked about, oh, they could offer like a $15 game package where you get in or $20 where you get in, you don't have a ship, and I'm all for that, you know.
Assuming that
Um,
there is sufficient gameplay on the ground, and
exactly.
and maybe enough money for you to get a ground vehicle so that you can move around, or some means of obtaining transit between um like major cities. There should be like they need to have multiple major cities on a planet in a case like that, or even a way to get to the outlying areas short of walking.
Yeah, transit, making ground vehicles viable and affordable, things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we talked a lot about economy. We went a little deeper than we probably should have because it's only a tier 0 implementation for economy in 323, which is just an increase in prices and an adjustment to how much you make. I am pretty excited. This is kind of a big one. The Moby Glass rework with the new star map.
Mm,
Pretty exciting stuff.
yeah. So I'm trying to remember. They did mention the Mobi-Glass as being 3.23,
Yep.
and did they specifically say Star Map 3.23?
Yep.
They
They
did.
sure did. They sure did. They also talked about we should be getting the FPS mini map with a compass.
Yeah, well, that's all tied in, right? So
It's
it's
all
it's
tied in.
it's 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 almost a single mapping system that just goes macro to micro.
Well, it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, they showcased it at CitizenCon, and the idea is, yeah, it goes from macro to micro. Is the mini map that you have in the corner of your screen is the same exact map that's in your Moby Glass for like a local area. Even the blueprints of your ship tie in, and then you can just zoom out infinitely until the whole system and maybe beyond. So that is exactly what it is. But we are getting that. They've added things that were missing at CitizenCon, like the search function. They put that in, which is good. We'll see if they implemented things like markers. Sharing markers would be really awesome.
Yeah, with regard to that system, the only thing that, or the main thing that I'm mostly interested in is just the ability to plot a course to like one of the moons of Crusader and have it work. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. The star map now is so shitty. You zoom in on a moon, and suddenly, if you zoom a little bit too far, you're inside the moon, and you can't click on any of the points of interest or anything. But
Or
on
even
this,
if
it's
or
like,
even if you do click one and you click, okay, great, plot route, and it's like nothing. No plot route,
yeah,
nothing. Like son of a, fine, give me
yep.
Crusader.
And you
Oh,
just
okay.
manually do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then you're like, fuck it, let me just find it in
yeah.
space. And
I have high hopes for this. It sounds like they put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into it.
yeah, I have high
Sounds like we'll be
hopes.
able to select not just moons and planets, but also all of the points of interest. So we'll be able to set a route to like Brios on cruise on Daymar, or
Right.
Shubin mining on fucking Yella or Illyria or wherever.
Well, I mean, you
So
can already
we'll,
do that now, but more importantly,
oh,
you could
can
you
you
could
though?
you
Can
can
you?
you can you can, but more importantly, you could set a route to Cousin Crows. And then not only will it get you to the planet and into the hangar, but then also the footpath to get you to Cousin Crow's.
You're right. You're right. I could be wrong. I seem to recall that they mentioned that that feature was not going to be in yet.
Yeah, I thought maybe something wasn't. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's it, because that's like next level
Yeah, I
mapping.
think that's going to be like a next tier implement. That's definitely coming. That's a squadron feature. It seems to work on in the dev build, but I do not believe that that is coming in
I wouldn't be
3.3.
surprised if they
But
figure it out and they get
that's
it in.
okay. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. Um,
Because
we know that there's
there's definitely going to be some things that make it in that they didn't mention. That was
yeah. So
explicitly said that there are some things
yes,
that they're wanting to be surprises.
that is true. That is true. It's just that there's a little bit of a difference between the map system as it works in Squadron and the map system as it has to work in the persistent universe,
Well, yeah,
right?
obviously.
Because in Squadron, sure, I think that there's going to be an open world aspect to it, right? Like that's kind of the whole idea of this whole game, and including Squadron. But Squadron's also got these pre-built maps where these missions take place.
That's
Like
right.
the Aceto Com Relay has been one that they've referenced a couple of times. That's a map, right? And so these maps are pretty easy to map out and implement into this star map and have the footpathing working and stuff. But taking that and then building the system to procedurally generate the map like they've described, where you go into a point of interest like a cave or something, and it will generate the map for you, and then to take that procedural generation and generate footpathing is something that I think they still have to work on.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know,
And also like in Squadron 42, they have the luxury of being able to restrict the number of systems that are even available to you. They have the luxury of knowing exactly where you need to go and being able to plot that stuff out kind of ahead of time based on the gameplay that's planned. Um, and they don't have to share any of that information with servers and other players and live updates. Oh, a player just, blew up a wall and that's going to change your path. Shit, right?
yeah,
They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So,
yeah, lots of stuff. Let's see. They talked about hangars, item bank and unique item recovery. That's going to tie into those freight elevators, the persistent hangars, right? They talked about if you buy items like on the pledge store, right? They have a system in place where you'll be able to utilize the freight elevators to recall them back should you lose them, right?
oh,
Uh,
is that what they
so
decided to do?
Yep. So kind of like a lost and found situation where if you pay real money for an item, you don't lose it. You can always
So
get it back.
maybe kind of like the a version of the existing insurance system where it's like, oh, you lost it, and we can get that back for you.
Probably, it's probably going to be something like that. They're probably going to come up with a way to keep people from abusing it because they're gonna. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah, they're
everybody
people.
does.
Of course they are.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna sit there with a friend who's got a box, right? And they're gonna say, "Oh, pull out an armor, put it in the box. Oh, I lost my armor. Pull out an armor, put it in a box, and just stack up these armors." Right? And
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. That's how people play games.
that's how
They
people
have
play games.
they have cargo hauling missions to kind of tie into that, and I think that is going to be, whereas now cargo consists of you purchasing goods and hauling them yourself. These are going to be contracts to move goods, I believe. So I don't think you're going to be financially on the hook. Payouts may not be as good because you're not risking as much, but they're there. Is what I'm understanding. Um, Going back to some FPS stuff, they've got the EVA Tier 2, which was one of the first things they talked about. It was also what the Inside Star Citizen last week was on. So
Yeah,
that's pretty good. We did talk about that because we were able to watch that.
yeah, and I mean that's another good one. That's another good one, right? So I'd probably
It
put that
is
one number two on my list of things that I'm looking forward to.
it's
It
definitely up there.
primarily just because of you know the 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 end of the entering EVA tumble, right?
It's a shitty tumble.
It's a shitty tumble. So just that being gone makes anything they do with EVA okay in my book.
As somebody who enjoys boarding people's ships, being able to smoothly make that spacewalk from my ship to theirs would
Yeah, to
be
be able to
very
run
nice.
Superman, land and
And then
go. Oh,
exactly that way I
oh,
don't have to say, all right, pull up next to him, and then we got to go.
fucking butter, man. Oh my god, so
Like,
nice.
okay, I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, there's a
So
guy trying to EVA and spinning. Haha.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
nope.
exactly. So I'm pretty stoked for that.
The
Talking about
tumbling.
FPS, two more cool things. The FPS loot system, the new looting system we're getting in 323. That's super exciting. That's going to be, whereas now when you're looking at a body, you loot it and it opens up a full inventory
Mm.
screen. Now, when you loot a body, it comes up with a little quick menu, so you can just click, 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 and move things back and forth really quick without having to be taken out of your FPS. I'm super excited for that. That's going to hopefully streamline things a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Good positive move forward. I wouldn't put it on my excited for list. I think
I'm
it's
excited for it.
I'm looking forward to, yes. Excited for, no.
Here's another one that is probably a similar sentiment: dynamic crosshair. For those of you who don't know what the
Mm.
dynamic crosshair is, it's a crosshair in your screen that, as we learned, will only appear with certain combat specific helmets. But basically, that this crosshair will move with your player movements as well as like recoil of the gun, and it's basically just showing you where your gun is pointing as opposed to just the center of your screen. So it's gonna move around and stuff. If you move around, the dynamic crosshair will move around as well. And so, you know, if you don't want ADS, which will increase your overall accuracy, right? You could hip fire and still have a basic idea as to where your gun is pointing. And I think it's kind
Mm.
of cool. I'm not like in love with it or anything. It's one of those things that, like, yeah, that's cool. I use it, but it's not up there.
Yeah, not being a PvP kind of person. That's right up there on my whatever list. It's like, okay.
I get that. I get that. I think it's gonna help with I want to see how it feels, right? But having assists for snap aiming, I think is gonna be a big thing. And I think that this dynamic crosshair can do that. Um so being able to turn, see where you're pointing, and get into ADS quicker without
All,
having to go to ADS and then hard scope and find your spot.
all I know is everything they do like that is going to make the PvP sweats way better at killing me. So it's not going to help me because I'm going to suck no matter how good they give it. You get, whatever they give us with, unless they give us straight up fucking aimbot. I'm going to
Which they
suck
will
at
not.
I'm going to suck at PvP, and just everything that they do to make aiming and combat easier, better, more fluid. It just means that I'm going to die easier to people who spend way too much time trying to kill people. So
You
I'm
make a
just
good
not
point.
I'm just not super excited about stuff like that.
That's an important topic, I think, to bring up, right? We talked with Hito a few weeks ago about master modes, right? And we started discussing, and we've touched on it a little bit since then, is the skill gap in Star Citizen, right? And the idea, we talked about how some games have things like skill trees and points where you can put them into specific things, and how I personally dislike those types of games in an online situation because you take the people who are already good at the game and then you reward them extra by making them more OP, and it sets that gap further apart. Star Citizen doesn't have that, which is part of why I like it, because the noob player versus the veteran player, that gap is smaller. But things like this, you make a solid point, right? You add these tools to promote combat and to make combat easier for people. Well, now you take these people who do a lot of combat, who do a lot of things like piracy and targeting other players, and you put them with somebody who is not savvy in terms of PvP, right? And it might give an even more of a tangible advantage to the PvP guys. So I guess there's a
Which
flip
button
side
is
to it, you know?
aim? What? How do I pull my gun out?
If you're at that stage,
I'm
right,
just
then you have no hope to begin with,
Yeah, I'm
and you
not at
should
that
maybe
stage.
stay in Terra or
I'm
something.
not at that stage, but still, you get
Stay in
that.
Terra where it's illegal to own a firearm. That's fine. The new character customizer, 323. We're going to see the rest of the hairs coming out.
I am interested to see if I can make my own face.
Beards is coming. Yes. Beards. I think we're getting some makeup. I don't know if we're getting tattoos yet in 323. The Inside Star Citizen this week did talk about branding. Did you watch yesterday's Inside Star Citizen?
I don't think I must not have branding.
So the in-game branding, right? They talked about building out like brand portfolios for all of the ship manufacturers and the different gangs and etc. And part of that was tattoos, right? I don't know if we're getting tattoos in 323. I know that that's supposed to be part of the character customizer. Am I correct in that?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
so.
I think so too. I know that
Or
you're
it may be that, or they may have a system in game for obtaining tattoos.
like you got to go to a tattoo artist or something.
Yeah, which
Um,
I think would be great if that's what they did instead.
I would actually prefer that, truthfully, but I don't know if tattoos are coming in 323. If not, it'll probably be with Pyro just as an extra kind of like, hey, look, just a fun little thing. Um, visor and lens HUD rework that kind of goes in. We were talking a little bit about the star map, right? Kind of the same idea.
Yeah,
We
and
have
the Moby
the
glass.
compass. Yeah, we've got the mini map. We've got the compass. Two huge quality of life improvements, I think, for just existing in the FPS space in general is having a mini map and a compass. I'm just excited for FPS radar and scanning to come to kind of help tie into that.
Sure, sure. I will admit that there are a few small specific changes coming in that entire Moby glass helmet stuff that I think is important. One being the you mentioned the compass, so the ability to know what direction I'm pointing when I'm just walking around a planet or just flying around a planet. I think that's super important. We've already got it. I think in a ship, we've got that.
Ships have the
Yeah.
compass.
So I think that's important, and I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, Compass is a huge deal, especially for a group like us, right? The Pyro Freelancer Corps, we do a little bit of everything, but over the past year or so, we've kind of leaned heavy into the first person combat aspect of things, right? We really feel that in Endgame Star Citizen when it's released, I'm going to use the word when it's released. I think FPS combat is going to be underutilized because this is primarily a space game. Most people play to fly spaceships, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I feel like FPS combat is not going to be as utilized as it should be, and so that's kind of where we've put our focus, so that hopefully we can have some sort of edge up, right? And we have found that had to get really creative with establishing cardinal directions when you're in the middle of an operation and utilizing landmarks for call outs, and you can't say things like 12 o'clock, right? Because, well, what's 12 o'clock? If it's in front of you, but somebody else's turn and you say, hey, we got enemies 12 o'clock, they're going to look up and ahead, which is 90 degrees off from you, right? So it's we've had to get really creative, and a compass is going to go a very long way to kind of helping streamline all of that. So that it looks like a small thing. It's a big thing. It's a really big thing. So very excited for that. Um, I mentioned it. We didn't really talk about it. Distribution centers. We talked last
Yeah,
week prior to having seen the
sure.
SCL, and I was convinced that distribution centers were not going to be in 323. I
It,
was utterly
I
convinced, and this is where Mike is laughing right now because
Yeah, I don't
uh,
remember my position, but I wouldn't be surprised if I said that they probably. But I don't know what I said. But
you
I
had
am not
said
startled. I'm not surprised at all that they're there
well,
because
that's pretty much what you said. You said that you would not be surprised if you saw them.
yeah, because ultimately what we're talking about, right? There's not really any new technology that goes in to make them happen. It's really just design and do it, right? This idea that they just have to make these large, complex places with all the stuff and new NPCs and all, but there's no new systems that go into. Well, at least I'm not aware of any new systems that are required to
So
make them work, right? It's
I
just
think there is. I think there is, right? And there's two that I'm going to bring up that may or may not actually be involved in this. This is just my own speculation. One is the AI nav mesh, right? Because these distribution centers are kind of like small towns, right? They're big. They've got roads inside and buildings and there's places to navigate in here, right? So I guess in my head, the AI navigation mesh was going to be an important part to this to give life to it, right? We know that they don't want to implement features that feel incomplete.
Sure.
So in my head,
Doesn't feel like a requirement, but I get what you're saying.
it doesn't feel like a requirement, right? That's kind of a tentative, like it would have been cool to see, and I think it would have added a lot. But you're right, I don't think it's wholly necessary. The thing, and another thing, the thing that I do think is necessary is mission content around these distribution centers, right? So they have to build out missions that involve you infiltrating these centers, and I know that they want to come up with secondary, and they've numerous times said tertiary routes to get into these types of places
Yeah.
to get around defenses, and then they have to have an objective inside for you to complete, and then they have to have a way for you to get out, right? So a distribution center to me sounds like you're probably there to steal a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Here's my pushback on that, right? So designing, building, and implementing locations does not specifically imply gameplay content, right? And I think the people who are creating like missions and that gameplay content, the things that you go and do, are not the same people, right? So in
Correct.
many cases, they're building these locations so that people who are building that gameplay content have a place to put their content, which makes it a two-stage kind of thing.
So
Now, yes, they can do it at the same time with regard to when they release it in a patch, but again, important, yes, still doesn't feel like a requirement to me.
2 years ago, I would agree with you completely, and I wouldn't have even brought up the mission content. However, they've made a pretty significant shift in the last couple of years regarding how they put out content. Things like ships, right? They won't put out a ship now unless they have content to go alongside of it, right? And that's important to them. They want to make sure that whatever they put out has content to engage with around it,
Yeah,
which is
that
why
it
I'm
has the base
confident.
systems that the base systems that the ship is intended to do, that it can do it. That those systems
Right.
are in place.
And it makes sense to me that they would do the same with the distribution centers. If they just put the distribution centers in with basic missions like they have at bunkers, I feel like there's hardly a point, right? There's got to be some content there that gives them that sets the distribution centers apart from your run of the mill bunkers,
Yeah, well,
which is why
I
I
definitely
think,
hope that's the
that's
case.
me too, right? And I do believe that it is. I guess that's kind of part of where my skepticism lied, though, was that, not only did I feel like they had a lot of work to do in just building the assets and getting them ready, right? But also the content around them and testing it out. That's kind of where my skepticism was. But Jared said it on video, so it must be true, right? It's coming in
Yeah,
223.
important to mention that all of this stuff are things that are planned for 3.23, not things that are guaranteed for 3.23. So any one of the things that they mentioned in last week's Star Citizen Live that we're talking about, any one of them could be pulled, pushed at any time if they decide that it's not ready, to go in.
Toasty, I don't know if you're talking about on this podcast or if you're excited for the new character customizer coming in 323, but either way, the beard game will be strong.
Yeah, I don't.
um,
The avatar I typically make these days is just some old looking dude with a military haircut. I really would like to try to make my own face, so that I can actually
just sit there for a few hours. I
populate the
would, I would,
game
I would do
myself.
that. I would do that if the character customizer is as in depth as it looked like it's going to be. It's going to be tough. So they confirmed actually what was one of my fears, in that there is a specific aspect of the character customizer that's staying, and I don't love it, right? And that aspect is that instead of just adjusting things like the size of your nostrils or how much your nose goes in and out, what they do is just like they have now. They give you a face, and then you can cycle through a selection of secondary faces and blend the features together as much as you want.
However,
I I don't love that.
however, It's a much larger pool of scanned faces with a lot more variety. And they have provided a system that allows you to essentially like slider through and do like a pull push that will automatically cycle through all those faces in
That's
such a way
true.
that it
They
seems
did
like
say
you're
that.
dragging and pulling and stretching the face around. It's just that those particular features wind up being, that you're right, that they're pulling from a pool. Also, for any of those, you can basically like do a slider of how much of one or the other, right? So like if you have two faces, you can say, okay, great. Well, this nose is too small, this nose is too big, and you can slider to say, there it is, in between the two as a blend. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be something that you'll enjoy, and that I think will be able to make characters that
I'm
really do look the
afraid
way
that
we want them
it's
to.
I'm just afraid it's not going to be intuitive, right? Because I personally don't have a problem sitting there and trying to figure it out, right? That's what
I
all
think
of
it
Star
will.
Citizen has been up to this point, right? And it may be, I'm just afraid that a new player is going to come to the game and go to the character customizer and be like, "What the fuck is this?"
The
Like
thing,
how do I use this?
I'll be honest, the one thing that I've been getting from all of the talk about the changes coming in 3.23 in the first half of this year, after the last CitizenCon, etc., is that there's been a lot of effort into making the game new player friendly, intuitive, simple, clean, understandable, fluid, getting all of the bumps and hurdles out of the gameplay, getting all of the junk out of the way so that you can get in and enjoy the game. And so I think that's going to be reflected in the customizer, in the personal interaction system, in the inventory system, in all of that. I think that they're really focusing on doing a good job of that, and I am optimistic that they're going to succeed at least to some degree in doing that. And I think the character customizer is
I
probably
hope
going to be
so.
pretty good. It may not be perfect. There may be things that we don't like about it, but I think it's going to be leaps and bounds better. And I predict that you're going to be at least 80-90% happy with it.
If I'm 80% happy with it, that's a win. I'll take that because I'm about 5% happy with the current one.
I
Fucking sucks.
I agree.
It
I,
fucking
I,
sucks.
I hate the one we have so much that I literally just have like, there's the face I pick, there's the skin I pick, I change the hair color, change the eye color, done. That's it. That's because I don't want to fuck with it, especially with the wipes and having to redo it. It's like, nope.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's almost more effort than I want to go into it as it is.
it wipes your character without even having to go through a wipe. It's like if you die, you turn into like a Black Ryan Reynolds.
I feel like the look of your character is something that they could save server side or client side, so that if they do a wipe, you can be like, hey, you know what? At least I know what I fucking look like,
Oh man, that'd be so nice if you could
right?
save it like
I mean,
like
how
your joystic profiles. You could just save a
right? I mean,
file, be
how
like, "This is my
how
character
how
loadout."
sensitive is that? It's like it's a few variables. Load it up, send it to the server. Now everybody knows when I logged in. They don't have to store that server side. What the hell? Come on.
That is a fantastic suggestion, and if we find that that's not how they do it, we should make a Spectrum post about that because that's a great idea. So good on you for that one.
Jeez.
That's a great idea. We're gonna pocket that one.
It's like how much security risk is there with that? Honestly, I
Yeah.
edit it and now I get to have blue eyes instead of green eyes, and I didn't do it through the customer characterizer. Big fucking whoop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that they could structure those files in a way that it doesn't let you go fucking around with anything else, right? Or if or if you try to edit them in a way that would break it, right? It just doesn't let you upload. It says like incompatible,
Or
whatever. I
send
don't
you
know
or
anything.
or just send you back to the character creator. It's like, oh shit, send me back to the character creator. I guess I got to do it again. That's okay. Okay, do it again. That'll teach me. Like,
So
come on.
moving on from that, um, We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Master modes is coming in 3.23.
Master modes, yep.
Uh,
I,
quick
I, I'm
refresher on
I am
master
I
modes.
am interested in master modes.
Me
I
too.
am
I
curious about it and looking forward to it in the sense that I want to see how it works and at least get used to it because it's the way of the future, right? And it
I
is core to the game. So let's just get there, put it in our hands. Let us get used to it.
Yeah, I'm excited for master modes, less for how it'll directly affect combat because it's going to be a huge effect on combat. But what I am excited to see is how it changes the dynamic of getting into combat in the first place. You know, because
Sure.
getting into combat now, it's not something that you could just get into and out of willy nilly, right? This is a decision that you have to make and stick to. If
Sure.
you're getting run up on, you have to say, I have about half a second to decide if I'm going to try and get the fuck out of here or if I'm going to tank it out.
Yeah. Honestly,
And
I'm more interested in the aspect of getting out of combat.
yeah, getting out of combat, if you decide to stay in quantum mode, for instance, and you decide, I'm going to try and hoof it out of here, that has to be, there has to be a reasonable percentage of scenarios where that's a viable option. Because if they make it to where it's like, oh, we're getting run up on, I have no choice but to switch to combat mode, it defeats the point,
Yeah, no,
right?
for me, that's where the quantum boost comes in. I just want the quantum boost. It's like, oh, you know what? Point in a direction. I don't care where I'm going.
It just
Get the fuck out,
yep,
and then
agreed.
find a place to go and get there.
Agreed. But on the flip side, let's go to the flip side too, right? There also has to be a means in which a skilled pirate group can try to combat that and has a reasonable chance to trap a target.
Yeah,
So,
so
quantum interdiction,
Mike
right?
asks an interesting question, and I think they talked about it, and I'd like to. I wonder if
Yeah.
they're going to change missile range. The answer is
Yes.
yes. Yes, they are.
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
and if I remember correctly, combat like just like ballistic range, missile range in general, massively increasing.
Yeah. So I'll kind of skim over this because it was mentioned. Um, while they want engagement distances to be significantly shorter, the actual effective range of these guns, the larger you go, especially, is going to be longer. Right now, projectiles pretty much despawn after 2 kilometers, right? Two and a half, maybe three at the very most. Well, now you'll be able to fucking ping somebody from 6 to 8 kilometers away with some ballistic guns, right? And that may not be the most effective range, right? Because there's a lot of movement that can happen in the time it takes that projectile to go from from point A to point B 8 kilometers away.
Plus, because of the whole distance thing, slight movements, like at your location, like slight wiggle or whatever, could be
Yeah,
massive
yeah,
changes
got to be
in target.
precise.
That
But
they move like 30 seconds before the bullet gets there, and it's like it's way off because that's a
yeah,
long
yeah,
distance.
but there's a flip side to that too, right? In that uh ships now, instead of fighting each other at 1500 meters per second, are fighting each other at 150 meters per second. So their speed is also drastically reduced, right?
Yep.
Which means that, the effective range by its very nature is going to become greater.
Yep.
They did also talk about, you mentioned missiles specifically. Their idea for combat is that missiles are going to be something that you use either going into combat or coming out of it. It's a first line of attack when you're coming in and you're still far enough away that they're viable. But also, if somebody does decide to try and make a break for it, they're going to be the final fuck you. In that, just because they've gotten out of your engagement distance doesn't mean they're safe. Because too far for guns, switching to missiles, and suddenly you lock on for 25, 30 kilometers. And even in you know quantum mode, unless they boost out of there, which they may, then the likelihood they could shake off a missile is going to be pretty slim. They did discuss that there are going to be ways to do it, but that missiles by their nature should be difficult to evade. So if you get like a good uh, pirate group or something who's got a wide quantum interdiction range, right? And they've got ships with good missile payloads and such. It's going to be very very hard to get away from them, right? So, yeah, to answer your question, missile ranges are absolutely going to change because combat ranges across the board are going to change.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Again, I don't know that I'm looking forward to it because that's just, more chance for me to get my ass handed to me. But it makes sense, and I mean, I don't disagree with it. I'm here for it,
Yeah, I'm
even as
excited
somebody
for it.
that's going to wind up
Dying a
absolutely
lot because of it.
not benefiting from it. We'll say.
um, player interaction experience. So this is the thing where you look at something and you tap F and you've got your favorited, whatever. We talked a little bit about that last week. I said that while I'm excited for it, I am afraid it's going to be a little bit clunky. Rev seems pretty confident it won't be, and
Yeah, I think, I think it'll be intuitive. I think it'll be pretty fluid. Again, it's only because I know that they're spending an awful lot of time into the user experience, right?
yeah,
So anytime we're talking about these things about, how the user is interacting with the game and the world, et cetera, that user experience, I think, I mean, they care. They really do. They care about
which is
the
good.
experience of being in the cockpit, the experience of being in FPS, the experience of just traversing the world, the experience, like they care. So because of that, and because these are all, in a lot of cases, people playing the game, right? And that's important. I think that they're going to get it right more times than not, and that the majority of these systems are probably going to be improvements, significant improvements. They may not be done yet. They may still be problems, but I think the majority, all of them, are going to be way better than they are now, regardless which system we're talking about.
I think you're right. Right. It's just that I try to maintain a healthy amount of skepticism. You know, not that I'm not hopeful. I just don't want to set myself up for disappointment.
Oh yeah, no,
So,
no. Notice, I'm not saying with any of these it's going to be perfect and I'm going to love it and blah blah blah. No, I'm just saying improvement over what we've got, and that
that it will be.
generally
It
speaking, I
will
think
be.
they're probably going to be moving in the right direction, and that we're going to be basically happy with the changes that come in. I like I said, this is still CIG we're talking about. It's still
Yeah.
Star Citizen we're talking about. Are there going to be bugs? Absolutely, there's going to be bugs. But the design and intent of the system, I think, is generally going to be good, and that we'll be happy at least with how it's supposed to work.
I'm just waiting for the bug where you tap F to pick up a gun, but then the prompt to pick up another gun is still there. So you tap F to pick up a gun, and you pick up a second gun in the same hand, and then you pick up a third gun in the same hand. I'm so excited for stupid bugs like that.
Yeah,
And before you
yeah,
know it, you've got 16 guns in one hand, and they all fire at the same time, and it becomes game breaking.
yeah.
Oh man, moving on from that, two last things that are at least on this list is kind of cool. We talked about events a couple weeks ago, and you were kind of glad that we brought it up, and we gave some speculation as to why we thought they were doing the siege event over the other events. They talked about the blockade runner event. Did you hear? Did you listen about that?
The blockade runner, I don't recall that one, but a data runner.
So, so the blockade runner event they said is built on Xenothread basically, except it is way more expanded. They didn't get into too many specifics because they want us to experience it,
Hmm.
but it's supposed to be basically Xenothread on crack.
Yeah, so I mean, I was reading something today about. I think we're probably talking about the same thing, and for some reason, I have data runner in my head, blockade runner in
Maybe.
your head. One of us.
I'm reading it here.
Okay, great. So then probably you're right. But it's a three-stage event, with the primary like mission being the third stage. Um, yeah, I'm definitely, anytime we're talking about these dynamic events, I'm definitely interested in those because so far they've shown all of the dynamic events have at least been interesting. Obviously, I tend to prefer the original Xenothreat. I thought that was great. The Ninetales lockdown, I think is great. I'm less interested in the Jump Town just because it's so massively PvP, which is the intent, which is
Yeah.
cool. It's not my cup of tea, and that's fine. And then Siege of Orison, I've actually really enjoyed Siege of Orison because it's ground combat, but it's also intentionally PVE, which is much more my jam, right? I've really enjoyed Siege of Orison. So just anytime they're coming out with like a new event, a new dynamic event, I'm really interested to see what it has to offer. And this new one, I'm super interested to see what it's like.
Yeah, me too. Because the the reason why Xenothreat is such a fantastic event is because the different stages that it has represent the different gameplay loops that Star Citizen has to offer, right? It goes from cargo running to FPS combat to space combat, and it covers all of that kind of stuff. You have to like be careful about the different cargo types you have on board because they're susceptible to catastrophic failure from different things, right? There's a lot of thinking that has to go around that, and it appeals to a wide range of people because you can go through pretty much the entirety of Xenothreat without ever firing a shot. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
and if you want to succeed at that particular event, there also has to be coordination between players, people you don't know. You have to be able to go in and say, "Hey, I'm here to pick up cargo. I'm in a quantum capable ship. Oh, cool." Or I'm in a really fast ship that doesn't need to do, quantum
yeah,
in
like
order to
like
get
I'm in a
there.
Herald. Give me the fucking whatever
Yeah,
whatever it
the
is. Just
timed
load up my
cargo.
ship. Yeah, yeah. The or the quantum sensitive one where you can't quantum with it. You
Right.
know,
So and
but
you have to be able to coordinate and discuss those things and make sure that the right things are happening. And then trust the people in the space to be protecting you from the ships trying to blow up your ship as it's getting loaded.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
I love Xenothreat. I'm
Lots
so
of levels to it, lots of depth. It's a fantastic event. So, given that this event was built on that same fundamental sort of structure, right? I'm super excited to see where they go with this one. Blockade Runner is going to be fantastic. I just hope that it actually works. They have yet to put out an event that consistently works. I get it. There's a
yeah.
lot of infrastructure stuff that they've been working on, and they have made improvements. But I would love to get an event that just works. You know.
Sure. Yeah, I also like that they managed to work in some Idris combat with that one.
Yeah.
Mint.
Yep. Idris combat. The last thing that's on this lens, I said lens because I read it. The last thing that is on this list here that I'm going to talk about is a new change to the reputation system that I feel like they kind of glossed over. Maybe I just listened to it, but they now have a hostility meter. So whereas before you started at 0 and you had a positive reputation, well now 0 is the middle ground and you also have a negative reputation. So you can piss people off now and they'll get hostile toward you.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm
Nice.
very excited for that.
I
I
will be
think I
more excited when people can say that I don't like you, I don't like what you did, and adjust. Like here's
fucking click 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 click.
thumbs down, buddy. And then maybe
Yeah.
that translates into reputation. That'd be kind of that'd be
That would be
cool.
cool. I think that's going to be a little bit more in depth. I think really what they're doing here with this is they're planning for Pyro, right? Because Pyro's run by gangs. Those gangs don't like each other. And if you are friendly with one gang, that will probably directly negatively affect your reputation with another gang. Like they may not have ever met you, but because you're affiliated with this gang, they're automatically going to dislike you.
Yeah.
Mike, we actually didn't talk about the scope rework. We talked about the dynamic crosshair, but I did forget to mention the scope rework as well is coming. So we'll just kind of talk about that for one quick second. They're adjusting scopes, right? They're like realistic scopes. They talked a little bit about them in CitizenCon, and then there was like an ISC, I think, shortly after or something, where they talked a little bit about them. I'm excited for them. I think it's mostly like lighting passes and stuff. It's not like a huge thing. Mike, maybe you can some more significant parts of the scope rework, but it's what I saw was a quality of life change more than anything.
Yes. So as I recall, the main change, the main difference that you would expect to see is that like as you're just walking around with your rifle, people will be able to see through your scope, right? That
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
actually more of a functional scope, and when you hold it up, it I think the intent is that it's just supposed to be more realistic.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. I mean, which I'm all for. So, we've talked about how I play this game for the immersion factor, and having that sort of realistic scope, I think is really cool from that standpoint. Is it going to be a game changer? No, but it's cool.
yeah, that is cool. Mm.
Ooh, I will say I'm gonna bring something up. If any of you who are watching are familiar at all with the P6 LR and the 16 times scope that comes on that, and you guys have ever tried to make fine adjustments with that scope, you'll notice it hops like a couple pixels at a time as opposed to just moving, right? That's super annoying, and I really hope that gets addressed with these scopes because it's abhorrent.
I
It's
have no
terrible.
idea what you're talking about, but I hope.
How do you not, man? It's so
You think I'm
bad
running
trying to.
around in with fucking 16 time scopes on a P6? No.
Oh man,
No, I'm
dude,
FS9ing and fucking spraying lead.
I
No,
am
I have no
up in
idea.
the hills trying to go pink and take off the dude's head from 1.5 kilometers away. You know, like that's how I typically will approach a situation. If I can't get a good sniper angle, I'll move in. But sniping is my jam.
No,
And
no.
so
I I
when you
I, I
zoom in with the
am
P6 and you're trying to aim at this guy, right? And your scope is just barely off to the left, you go to adjust and it goes bink just to the right, and then it goes bink just to the left. It's so
yeah,
frustrating.
first of all, that reminds me of that little magic trick, the little thing you stick the sword in and you go and then like the anyway. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna I'm the kind of guy that just takes advantage of the fact that the AI is stupid. Give me an FS9, I walk up
yeah,
on them and
yeah. You're gonna have a hard time when they're not stupid.
yeah, well, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
They're still going to be not as good as players
agreed.
because
Yeah,
if they make AI as good as players, that's too hard. That's fucking hard mode right there. That's no thanks.
yeah. I agree. I agree. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We can talk a little bit more about that hostility. I was saying that I think they're using it to prep for pyro because of how the gangs operate, right?
Sure, it could
But
be.
it's yeah, I think further than that, it's also gonna be like if you start being participating in criminal activity in a more civilized space like Stanton, right? Then crime stat or not, right? Police may start shooting at you for existing there. You may have a perma crime stat aside from your if you've got like maximum hostile status with Crusader security, right? Just entering in their space could be like, no, this guy needs to fucking die, and they might just kill you. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm excited for that. Thinking ahead, daydreaming about the future of the game. I really love the idea of smuggling yourself into a civilized space and going to some backwater spaceport, wretched hive kind of place, but you're in civilized space, and it's like, oh, I always got to watch my back around here.
Sure.
I I like the idea of that kind of grungy, like, yeah. We'll see how it plays out.
Yes, we will.
I got a price on my head worth more than this moon.
Yeah, that takes me to the cantina in Star Wars. Do you know who I am? I'm wanted in 9 systems.
I've got the death sentence in 12
Or
systems.
whatever the hell. Yeah.
I don't like you either. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this list, and granted, I just pulled up the first wiki page I found, so maybe we're missing something, but we certainly covered all of the major ones. Was there anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to add, Rev?
Um no, not really. Not really.
Really quick, let's talk about just a quick kind of closer here. Jared said specifically that there are things that they are omitting because they would like us to discover them, right? What's one or two things you think he might be hiding from us that we're going to see in 323?
Animals. I think he's hiding animals.
I
I
think so
think he's
too.
hiding the cow. He may be hiding the space whale. I think
Microtech Yeti.
animals.
Animals is a strong guess. I think so too, right? They showcased them at CitizenCon. Granted, it was only just a of a cow, right?
And then they
But
got the
then I
cow flying across the
that's
screen in every
exactly
one
what
of
I
his
was gonna
fucking
say.
shows. It's like, come on. That feels like
Yeah,
foreshadowing to me.
I think it is. I think it is. Um, Anything else you think we might be getting aside from animals?
I mean, I think it the safe bet that they're going to squeeze in a ship or two that they haven't told us about. Maybe a straight to flyable. Um,
Yeah, I think that is a safe bet. I don't think that
um,
counts.
I don't know that there's really anything else. I mean, they talked a lot about in CitizenCon about all of the systems and stuff that they're planning on bringing in. I don't think they're going to squeeze in pyro. I don't think
No.
they're going to, um,
Excuse me. Whew.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Beyond that, it's really hard for me to speculate.
Well, then to close out, if they do squeeze in base building, which I'm not convinced they will. If they do, though, squeeze in base building, as the leaks have suggested, what sort of depth do you think we would see with that
I
for a
I
323 release?
I think they wouldn't get much farther than land claims. Um, maybe one or two building types at most.
I'm kind of with you there, right? So if they do squeeze in base building, they will probably release at least one ground vehicle to go alongside it. I could imagine the Atlas chassis, because they showcased that at CitizenCon. Um, I could imagine that they would probably have like one or two like hab units you could build. Probably like a small landing pad with refuel services. Um,
When I say one or two buildings, I really kind of mean like the types, right? So a hab unit, but maybe two or three versions
right.
of the hab, right? And then like maybe some kind of a storage,
Yeah, like a
and then
storage
and then
building.
and then maybe two or three versions of that. But probably I have a hard time seeing much more than that, because until
Yeah.
they're ready to actually build in real functionality and actually giving us the ability to create a robust base, I don't see them giving us much more, right? Because it goes into that ability to use thing, right? That you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. They're not going to give us like the ability to process materials, give us those facilities unless we can, gather those resources. They're not going to give us the ability to gather the resources unless we can do something with them, right?
I agree.
So
And there's two, I guess kind of one more thing, but really two more things that is keeping me from being convinced, right? We know that they're working on the replication layer, right? They've put out some PTU tests, right? But the second thing that they've not said anything about for some time, which, maybe it's one of those things they sneak in there, is in order for base building to be viable, period, we have to be able to select what shard we play on. Because if we build on one shard and suddenly we load into another shard,
no. Mm-mm. I think you misunderstand shards, because the idea is that your base exists in a location on a planet, etc. Period, regardless of shard. Right? It's not like your base only exists on a single shard, because say like nobody's there, right? And so like every instance of this location despawns, right? If you come in, then it's going to be there. If you join the game in a month, you haven't been there at all. Nobody's been there. You can only join in a month. Say you join on a friend, right? Now this is a shard that has long since despawned. It's gone, right? You go to that location, your base needs to be there. Somebody else on a different shard that you're talking to comes to you. It needs to be there, right? I don't think shard is going to play into whether or not your stuff is where it's supposed to
so
be. It's
so
just a matter of what set, or like what hardware, what instance is managing that at the time.
as it stands right now in today's Star Citizen, One server is tied to one shard.
Okay, then that makes me. I get what you're saying, and that tells me that any version of base building, any version, will not come until they at least have static meshing, if not dynamic meshing.
That's part of why I remain unconvinced. So anyway, we've just about reached the end of our podcast. Oh man, we could probably talk a lot more about this stuff, but we've already been going for an hour, and we have eternity to keep chatting week after week. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But feel free to join our Discord and chat with us about this kind of stuff anytime. It's been streaming across the bottom here, but it's going to be discord.gg/pfcs. We try to keep it pretty simple, so hop in there if you're not in there already, and come chat with us. Otherwise, we will see you next week.
Actually, I don't think the Discord is on there. I'll have to add it to the list. But,
you should add it.
Discord.gg/PFCS. Come by, stop by, come see us. All right.